It's 1 o'clock,
You did all right.
so let's call
I
a
got well
meeting,
trained.
let's call a meeting of the Harwich Accessibility Right Committee to begin. First thing I'd like to do is, are we going to approve the minutes, any changes, any recommendations to the minutes? The only thing I'd like to say is, my name is spelled M-A-R-Y-A-N-N.
Sorry,
Oh, don't
I'll
apologize.
correct that.
I should have told you the week before.
I have a feeling my computer put the E on the end. So
Okay,
we'll
so
cross
all
it
those in
off.
favor of approving the minutes?
So,
Wait.
A motion?
Yes.
John, second?
second.
Great. Eileen is a second. Okay. We are fortunate to have Link with us today. Thank you very much. And do we want to begin with questions, or would you like to give us a little presentation about finances and how we go forward? We're a new committee. This is the third time we've met.
Well, congratulations on, doing yeoman's work.
Well,
Presentation. What, from a macro standpoint, I would just want to say, everybody thinks I should have a sidewalk. Should be a sidewalk here, a sidewalk there, and it's easy. Unfortunately, my experience in this town has been, that's great, I have engineered several roads to put sidewalks on until you actually go and start dealing with the public and the abutters, and then the abutters are like, well, I didn't know I was gonna lose my hedge, or I didn't know I was gonna lose this, and that's my property, and they don't realize that it is the town's property, it is a right-of-way, but it doesn't, it seems to not matter. So I have tried to build, what, Larry, you've been on the board, Long Pond Drive, Lower Bank Street.
And you're exactly right, because people, they don't realize where the easements
Yeah.
are. And these people have hedges they've had there forever, and they start.
So the cycle is, we go and engineer and come to the public meeting, the board bless you, and then the abutters come out, and they go to the board, and then the board says, maybe right now's not a good time. It's been my experience. It doesn't mean not all the time. I mean, I had one, an email from a relatively new resident asking, how come she lives down on 39?
yeah, we have a copy of that, so thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, the lady on 39 on Church Street.
you have a copy of my email. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I can stop talking now.
No, no.
Um,
No, please don't stop her.
And I refuted that, so, not refuted it, but they want to know how come there was sidewalks in all of the directions from this major intersection, but down 39?
Yeah.
And the real answer is, the 137 got done as a $6 million TIP project, a transportation improvement project that was paid for by others and mandated by DOT that these are the standards we're gonna put in sidewalks and bike lanes and so forth. The 39, the board had us do that with Stop and Shop mitigation money from the Rotary up to 39. There was nothing, and he went down 39 towards Orleans. Thus, no one built a sidewalk. The portion to Bay Road was just Stop and Shop. So a layperson would say, how come you got connectivity in all the directions but not my direction? Well, because others all paid for it, and they were part of larger projects that we wouldn't have got had we not said, yes, we're going to build the sidewalk. Sidewalks are also far more expensive than, and I think I costed that one out, I don't remember, it was probably $750,000, $500,000, something that's mind-boggling.
$660,000.
Okay, I was in the neighborhood. For how long, what was the length of that? Was that even a mile?
3,300 feet.
Less than a mile, 650 grand. So generally in this industry, you say a mile of sidewalk costs you about $1 million to be done right. When we put this into perspective, what we generally get for road maintenance money is an article of $700,000, and we generally get about $700,000 in Chapter 90 money from the state. That does not go, and that's been the same funding since '06, I think, when we had Pete Watson on the capital outlay and FinCom. It doesn't go very far. And right now, we are putting basically all of our money in drainage systems ahead of the sewer project. Because the last thing you want to do is have new sewer put in, have a new road, and leave old infrastructure in the ground. So I have no plans to construct any sidewalks anywhere. When we become aware of substandard things, we try to fix them. But even something as simple as an ADA transition, that's a couple grand. That's a couple $1,000s to just do one of those yellow warning pads with the concrete going up. It's mind-boggling how expensive this stuff is. And I didn't know exactly if I covered what you're.
Well, I think we all have a lot of questions, and since the last time we met, Larry sent us a packet of about 5 different proposals, grants that had been done in the past from, say, 2018.
I sent all the stuff that Matt Harder.
That, a man by the name of Matt Hart had put together.
You're
He
involved
did,
in all
he
those.
did a lot of work trying to get some of this stuff done. He got some, I mean, honestly, the harbor project wouldn't have happened probably without that. But he ran into, brick walls here with the,
Before we started meeting, I was commenting that he thought twice at least that he was gonna get approved,
Yep.
2 years in a row. He got all positive feedback from the state, and then we get into the political arena, we got out to people, that's propaganda.
and the
I'm
sidewalk.
sorry, I didn't understand the last thing you
Can
said.
say that again? Yeah.
Well, it came into competition because it's a finite series, and when he got to the final, even though he had all the positive feedback from the state officials.
MassWorks, was that the last one?
Which I think was,
Yeah.
when it came into the end, it seemed like we always were beat out by Boston suburb.
Yeah, I
As
mean,
Yep.
mentioned before, that's kind of the politics we live in Massachusetts. We find it hard to compete, because they have the votes.
Well, and so they put most, I don't remember this, I knew this one from Howard Center and stuff got rejected. Matt had also applied for the Saquatucket sidewalk project, which I have an approved tip project to do, slated for 2024. That's from Bank Street to Saquatucket Harbor. That's in the works. That, because it's DOT, has a construction value of $1.3 million for 3,300 feet of sidewalk. Mind-boggling. It really is.
And Matt also thought one time he had some money to do here to community center.
Yeah, no, that fell through too.
That fell through.
So a lot of the formulas are based, that the state uses to cull through and decide who's getting awarded what, is, based on employment, population, also wealth. And unfortunately, everyone down here in the Cape looks like we're all wealthy on paper, because our properties have relatively high valuation relative to income. And, same thing with Chapter 90. We don't necessarily get our fair share of that based on our road miles, because road miles are only about half of the equation that they use to distribute the money with. So I think we've lost. Matt did try for a lot.
yeah, I mean, I printed it, and I mean, this is an extensive grant this gentleman put together,
Yeah.
and so that's just behind us for naught. Right, I mean,
Yeah.
we need to ask the questions. I wanna open this up to the committee, because I'm sure we all have questions. John?
What about, you kind of touched on it, but I'm not sure I understand it. Money that's been approved and the job hasn't been done. Isn't that something that's been going on?
What?
Well,
if you ask-
oh God, let me think. The school, Forest Street, South Street.
That's going on. That's, they submit 25% design tomorrow. Anything that's in the, dealing with Mass DOT, anything with his grants and stuff, the timeline for this stuff is generally like 5 to 7 years.
All right,
Okay,
okay.
so the Safe Routes to School grant, if that's what you're talking
Yeah.
about, the triangle around the schools, is, we've had some acrimony, because with DOT. The staff came out, I don't want to be too loquacious here, but he asked about that project. we've had two professional site walks. The second one came out with a bunch of Mass DOT. There was probably 9 of them, and I think 8 of them weren't old enough to shave, quite frankly. And we went on this walk, and the next thing I know, they're engineering this thing with 8-foot wide multi-use paths rather than a consistent 5 or 5.5 foot sidewalk. Okay? So we had a subsequent meeting with some people I know that are older. A lot of the people have retired, I knew, and try to refocus this. And in fact, the selectmen's acceptance letter for this grant even quoted exciting about getting the 5.5 foot sidewalks installed consistently where it's down to 3 feet in some places. So I have been at odds with some DOT people that sit up that think what works in Cambridge is going to work here. What I have told them is, from my experience and perspective in Harwich, if we try to build an 8-foot anything, even though we have the right of way, it's going to get sunk. Because the abutters are gonna feel that's my property, it's out of character with the town, why are we gonna build it? Right? I'm only one cog in the wheel. We've had a meeting where, a virtual meeting where we talked about that. I thought it was all taken care of. Next thing I know, this guy's directive, the project engineer to the consultant was, well, where possible, widen this thing out. So the 25s are due tomorrow. And in probably 2 or 3 months, we'll get some feedback about that, and they'll schedule a public hearing probably for fall sometime. And it's still slated for 2024 construction.
And I think we've had some disagreement amongst ourselves too, in town, because we were hoping at one time to link that better to Harwich Center.
They pulled that out from, it was supposed to be $1 million.
And there were some people who weren't, we had people that are really happy with what we did with Harwich Center, and some people weren't so happy.
Well, that was pulled out. We wanted to do a sidewalk down Parallel Street to get to the library, because that made sense, kids walking in the library. That portion got pulled out because of financial constraints. They pulled out from that cut through between the 2 schools. They pulled out going down to Sisson, that portion of Sisson, and they pulled it out because of, quote, financial constraints. Next thing I know, the project manager is saying, well, design it out to 8 feet where possible, and don't worry about the money. Well, don't worry about the money. Build what you promised us to build in the first place, which was stick to the original scope, which was that entire triangle, ADA compliant 5.5 foot sidewalks. I'm trying my best.
Help me to understand, who is it that pulled it? The state or the?
Mass DOT
Oh, okay.
manages the Safe Routes to School program. Okay, it was $1 million grant that we got approved for. Marriott, the principal, applied for it, then it falls on the town because the Board of Selectmen has jurisdiction over all the roads. And I've been acting as the town's agent on behalf of this and trying to keep this young kid focused on the original scope, which was we're going to R&R, remove and replace the existing sidewalks. I don't think anyone wants to see an 8-foot multi-use path over here. And this is the section, this piece on Main Street's where they're talking about doing that.
Is the 8 foot the standard? Is that what they're saying in this?
Where you have the right of way, it makes sense. Like 39, I tried to get a tip project to do 39 at one point. I would have outside of Harwich Center. We've got a 60-foot right of way. We got plenty of real estate to build. So rather than put sidewalks and bike lanes on both sides, you can get away with building an 8 or 10-foot path on the shoulder, and you have all your traffic. You have 2-way foot traffic and bicycle traffic over there. Town of Dennis on Old Bass River Road, I think. They've got one of these paths, if you're interested.
So ADA compliant sidewalk is 5.5 feet?
Well, 5 foot, but you build a 5-foot sidewalk and you usually have a 6-inch granite reveal that would be flush, so that gives you another 6 inches. They can technically go down with impediments to 3 feet, I believe. I believe it's 3 feet there. So if you have a pole that you can't get around or some other movable object, it is legal to leave that pole. You still have to have 3 feet clearance. But the standard today is I'm saying 5.5. That's what actually gets built, but a 5-foot sidewalk. So they're going from 5 to 8, and it doesn't make sense to me. I'd like to see this thing built, because that sidewalk, particularly here on Main Street, is in atrocious condition.
Mhm.
More questions?
Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
I was very verbose, I apologize.
Quite all right. You answered it.
Yeah, the Commonwealth doesn't do anything very fast, including DOT.
No, sir, that's, yes.
But I think I'm a little more optimistic because on, you know, the project going down, 130, 124, you know, by the lakes, that they just put bypass on each side of the road. They got canceled, you know, between Hinckley's, Long Pond and,
Canceled, I almost quit over that. I got the living bejesus beat out of
Well, we all
me
did.
for a year and a half.
we all did for that. But at that time,
Thank you.
But at that time, they being the state, Mass DOT, demanded that we have, you know, on each side of the road, there's already bypass on one
Okay,
side.
you've got this a little,
Excuse me, could you just tell me, you're talking about Hinckley's?
okay,
Way?
I'm gonna clear this
By
up.
Long
He's,
Pond and, Hinckley.
he's mostly right, and he endured this right along with me, I will say. I had an approved, a $4 million transportation improvement project for 124, from basically Headwaters Drive, where the state's right-of-way
Yeah.
ends, to the Brewster Town line.
Okay.
The main impetus for that was me thinking, why should Harwich taxpayers pay to fix this road? Now listen, there's tons of ills wrong with that road. You don't have a consistent road width, we got consistent flooding. I can't put drainage in the ground because I've got water a foot under the road in places
Okay.
where you're
Yeah,
down
yeah.
along the
Yes,
ponds.
it does flood a lot.
So the road would have had to have been raised, major project, okay? But the road would have had to have been raised. So there was an organized group that didn't want this to happen and was very, very voracious about it, and eventually convinced the selectmen to back off. And once the selectmen were no longer unified, remember Peter Hughes did that presentation that we spent 20 grand on, and for me, he says it's 2 foot shoulders or nothing. We were arguing over 4 foot or 2 foot shoulders. I had design exceptions that they're no longer granting. In fact, because of that project, Larry, DOT changed the way they do these projects.
But the point I was trying, go ahead.
But I had a design exception because of the proximity of the bike path. All we needed to do was have 11-foot road width, lane width, and 4 foot shoulders. They gave us a design exception for sidewalks because of the proximity of the bike path. So the 4 foot shoulders became an arguing point, because now you're putting 8 feet more down the pavement, but there's a lot of reasons. Snow removal, safety, being a vehicle to be able to pull over if it's in trouble or disabled and not back and be in the lane. There's a lot of reasons to have shoulders. We got in this complete arguing match and lost a $4 million project because the abutters wanted 2 foot shoulders. DOT wanted 4 foot shoulders, and as ridiculous as it sounds, that 2 feet cost the town $4 million.
Yep.
And then I went and spent $500,000 putting a Band-Aid on it and walked away from the road.
And I voted for that,
Pardon me?
I voted for that.
It was Peter that, right in a meeting, he said 2 foot shoulders or nothing.
The reason I brought it up was, not to be overly optimistic, but it looks like when we consider the sidewalk from Harwichport down to Saugatuck Harbor, that Mass DOT will allow us to put a sidewalk on one side of the road.
And not the other.
and not the
That
other,
was huge, that
which
first
is-
in the
which is
state,
a
Larry.
huge- Which is a huge win, and so
That is.
I want to put a note of optimism, because they did work with us a little bit.
What's huge about that is that DOT does not allow transportation improvement projects. They have to meet these design criteria. And it's usually bike lanes and sidewalks on both sides of the road. What's unusual is not that they go build on their own infrastructure, a sidewalk on one side. They did a Route 6A in Brewster 2 or 3 years ago. That took 15 years. That was in the works for 15 years to get done. But DOT did that not as part of a transportation project. They did it on their dime. This one is part of the transportation improvement project using federal money. And I have never seen them grant this to do one sidewalk, no widening on one side of the road. It took some, it took a lot. We've been working on this since, 2015. They promised to, quote, build us a sidewalk the next time they had something in the area going on. That wasn't worth a whole lot. Not even the paper it was printed on. But we've now got this in the works. It's been moved up. We had a private donor donate $250,000 for engineering on this. Believe it or not, this sidewalk is gonna end up taking about $400,000 of engineering to build 3,300 feet of sidewalk. The town contributed, we had an article for 200, which I haven't even tapped yet. And a lot of it's tied up in going over the creek crossing down at Brax. But that's on for 2024. This is on for 2024, and the West Harwich tip project, Route 28 is on for 2024. So
And
there's a lot of things in the iron.
And every sidewalk has to be ADA compliant.
Everything they build has to meet current standards, absolutely. Everything I build, I can't go build something. You know, I get this all the time. Why can't I get a crosswalk here? Why can't I get this? Anything I have to do has to meet current standards. MUTCD, Municipal Traffic Control Devices. Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
And that's an interesting point, because I get, a friend of mine calls me probably in December, once a month, complaining about 28 across from the upper bar of the tent.
Yep.
Because kids run across there and there's no sidewalks. And, you know, that's by Jake Rooney, so there's a curve, it's dangerous on get out.
There's no place.
And I know he's contacted you, and I think he's contacted.
Traffic Safety Committee, we vetted all
He's
that.
gone through every way he can get it.
Yeah.
He's finally given up, but,
Well, it would take a controlled crossing. DBA put a real light, a traffic signal there. With the curve, the hill, coming the other way,
Yeah.
the curve, there's no
seems
place
like
to
an
put a
obvious
crossing.
need, but we can't
So-
find it.
So, this is all new to me. I mean, this is language that I'm not used to using.
Me either.
That's why we have Link to translate for us.
I'm sorry?
That's why we have Link to translate.
Well, I know. I'm not sure, who keeps canceling this? I mean, is it the state?
Canceling what?
Well, you know, the sidewalk you said, or the
No.
shoulders or
We
the.
were talking about a project that was initiated in 2012 and ultimately,
Well, I meant all of the ones that you've been talking about.
no, they're in the works. They're all scheduled for 2024 right now.
Okay.
You said this one, what's this one?
2024.
No, what
The
is it?
Safe Routes to School.
Okay, all right, okay.
So that would be,
That's Main Street,
Okay.
South, and Sisson. That triangle around the school.
the
Sidewalk
high school,
project.
you mean?
No,
Oh.
the elementary school, right over here, right out
Okay.
behind
I'm,
us.
I'm new to Harwich, so like, yeah, I need,
Like you were going towards Shaw's.
oh, down
The
there.
kids walk from the school
Right.
up Sisson and over to the library.
Yeah.
So that's a,
That's why we tried to make a connection, a
Sure.
complete connection over there. So that is in the works for 2024. We've got the sidewalk project from Bank Street to Saquatucket Harbor is slated for 2024, as well as from the Dennistown line to the Herring River Bridge is slated for 2024. So we've got three major projects that are working their way through DOT process, which again, about a 7-year timeline.
Is it Mass
Yes,
DOT?
Mass DOT.
And that's all being paid by the state.
The town is responsible for engineering, and if it's a town way, for acquiring the right-of-way. After DOT accepts the project, gets by the 25% design here, which is their major opening for public input, and it's a misnomer, you're usually about 75% done at that point. Then they take over all aspects of it, they advertise the project, they award the project, and they oversee its construction. Where the town's responsibility is engineering and right-of-way. We got a bridge project, Azalea Drive Bridge project over off of Headwaters. I knew it, I saw it on their docket, because that's a small bridge program, but it's funded through this TIP thing I'm talking about. Out of the blue, a person that I worked with at DOT on right-of-way on 137, so that would have been like 2011, 2012, gives me an email, hey, long time no see. You've got this bridge project and you gotta do the right-of-way. Huh? Seriously, huh? I got some relief, I pulled some strings, and they allowed me to do a right of entry, which still, without exaggeration, I probably had 40 hours into getting 9 easements, right of entry forms, even though the project itself is taking no private property. So when they're doing a project, DOT has a policy of, if we got grading right up to this line, 3 feet past this, a workman could stop, and then if it was your property, you could claim somebody was trespassing. So they make you go get easements, which are generally recorded at the Registry of Deeds. It's a federal process you gotta jump through. So nothing is easy in any of this.
So it sounds like, are you the only advocate on these projects with the state people, or are there other folks that?
Well, the
Can
advocacy comes from the Board of
lends-
Selectmen.
And as Link mentioned, the Safe Schools project was initiated by the principal.
By Mary.
Right, but,
By the elementary school.
so it's the town solely, the only,
Well, it came through us.
Advocate?
Because it's town property, but she actually.
She initiated
She
it.
initiated it and then brought Link in.
okay, so what I'm trying to think
So
about is,
there are other advocates. And
where is the weight coming from? Just the town itself?
Wait.
The weight, meaning the,
advocates.
It's just DOT process. Like anything that I could make happen in a year takes them 5.
I understand.
It is,
I think to answer your question, Link puts and keeps track of all this, but anything we as a group can help advocate and help support these activities gives more muscle. It may not be successful, but anything helps. Yeah, that's part of the role that, and because we're ADA, that does carry more weight than other committees, because, you know, it's a federal mandate, state mandate.
well, this
Well,
exact
yeah.
question I got out of Paul Manning.
Right.
He writes the town a check for $250,000 and he wants this thing done like yesterday. Don't blame him. And when I told him this originally was slated for 2026, I thought he was gonna shoot me, quite frankly. We've got it moved, we've got moved up because of very small scope. It's a little over $1 million. Some other larger projects not ready to move. So the reason the wait is this one pot of money, used to be 10 million, now it's 13 million, that the whole Cape gets. And everybody, all the towns are competing for projects for this.
sure.
So there's a pecking order. The Cape Cod Commission manages that pecking order, and they have a group that I sit on called the Joint Transportation Committee that makes recommendations to the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, that is the body that approves these plans, the finances for these plans.
Uh-huh.
And when I get something on the tip, it's 5 to 7 years out. That's where it goes. And then if I can move things along faster, then we did it. The sidewalk was originally 2027, because it's only $1 million and we're hustling as fast as we can. We've got it moved up by 2 years. And Mr. Manning isn't all.
That's the Bank Streets, excuse me,
Yes,
Sagatucket, right?
yeah.
Just wanna clarify.
And, he wanted his thought, if this was a town thing and he wrote me a check for $250,000,
Cool.
he'd be walking on that new sidewalk now, because I could build it for $250,000. But because you have so much higher standards when you're dealing with DOT, it just costs a boatload more.
Very enlightening.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
If you take away the sidewalk things you're talking about, big money things, are there small money items that we should be considering, like we could do ourselves, crosswalks in places in our state that would help us move the ball.
Well, we refresh, I have budget, and we refresh all the crossings and line paintings and the center lines and fog lines. We get all that done, Larry. I have budget for that, to do those sorts of maintenance, low-hanging maintenance items.
So maybe a list of that to our community would help, just what's going on.
What, a list of what crosswalks are?
Low-hanging maintenance,
The
yeah,
low-hanging
we can do in terms of ADA.
Well, there's like 80 of them on Laura County Road.
Yeah.
There's another road, I really tried my very
Well-
best.
Trying to get big things done, there's small things we could be doing.
Fixing, fixing broken things, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And crosswalks, things that we could handle without the,
Right.
the tip money. So while we're pursuing the bigger things, we're sure we're tackling some of the small things we could be doing.
Well, even one of the smaller things, like I just said, so putting this little project out here was,
Well-
what, 50 grand? Or just putting some, essentially,
Well, this we had.
some ADA transitions and some paint on the road.
Yeah.
Really did what you see
yeah,
out
the
here.
library, yeah.
It might have been a skosh less than 50, but I remember the grant value being.
And it took
around
several
there.
years because there was a lot of discussion about what exactly it was, I think.
The only thing we
On the
didn't do
far
was
side.
that dining stuff on the sidewalk, which. But we did everything else, and quite frankly, everyone blames me for this, but I think it actually works.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is safe, definitely safer.
Yeah, and especially the speed sign, although you didn't,
Yeah.
that, people are actually slowing down coming into town.
Well, the
especially
traffic
from East
gores
Town.
are what everybody
Yeah.
gets upset about, and I have to explain, it takes 10 minutes to explain why there's such a large traffic gore at the end of Bank Street and why we don't have a dedicated right-hand turn out of there. But if you think about it, if you got 3 lines of traffic, it makes pedestrian crossing far more challenging, and especially once we don't have the real estate to make a dedicated turn out of there. I thought what was engineered was the best alternative. And Ginny was the one that was forcing that one.
Well, because she can't now because she's moved her office, but before she watched people almost get run over every day.
Yep, yep.
So we could say then smaller projects are either in the works, or we could see something accomplished with the smaller projects.
You have to say what you mean by smaller projects.
Fixing broken things, small
Yeah,
things,
yes, okay, yes.
like a little
Yes.
ramp on a curb cut,
Well,
that kind of thing.
a single curb cut like that, it's not a curb cut, it's a different animal. Putting in an ADA transition is about $3,000 per transition. So
Okay.
if you need 2 of them to do an actual crosswalk, now you're up to 6 and a little bit of paint. So just something as simple as I want a crosswalk here, you can see you're $7,000-8,000 doing the bare minimum. And that's not going anywhere. Once you start to talk to go somewhere, it gets,
I don't want to ask any questions, I just really want to walk away understanding this. So you have some of those curb cuts on the books right now, ready to go, or not?
no. I think I started this to say just about every dollar we have, other than like line painting and just normal maintenance stuff,
Okay.
is going in the ground ahead of the sewers. Because actually we're dealing over on Sherwood where we were behind the 8 ball, and now I have to go dig a brandy new road up to put new drainage in over there reluctantly. We have since done more coordination, so I've got $1.2 million, $1.3 million scheduled to go in the ground here very shortly, and that's where we're putting the bulk of our money. So we revamped we have a 5-year road maintenance plan. It's on our website. If you go to harwichhighway.com, you can get that plan. You can see year 1 and 2 is all about staying ahead of the sewer project. Because the last thing we want to do is what I had on Sherwood. That's your neighbor neck of the woods, isn't it?
Old. I moved.
Oh, you don't live back out there anymore? That's the last time I
Or
was
I'd
over
be-
your
Or I'd be
house.
complaining you're digging up my house, my road. A brand new road.
So that house where the driveway went down like that, you don't live there anymore?
No. Nope.
Well, I think my hope is that as part of the committee's activity, if they find a spot that really bothers them,
Certainly.
bring it to you. It may
Yep.
not be in this year's budget, it may get to next year's budget.
It's-
So we have the communication of this committee and their
Yep.
actions they're willing to use.
Certainly, if you find something, a trip hazard on a sidewalk, or something like root damage, or something that's, that we should be taking care of, bring it to our attention. Absolutely. If we can do this, something as normal maintenance, particularly if we can do it with in-house staff, more than happy to take care of stuff. That what we should be doing. Unfortunately, the sidewalks, as a brand new director, back 20 years ago, I was all about, let's build sidewalks. Let's do the right thing. And I think Mr. Wigman was the first time I heard, so he's trying to build a sidewalk to nowhere.
He moved to California to get that. But he was-
So I knew I had, try this one. So you talk about pedestrian and bicyclist connectivity, right? So you can get from point A to point B. I did 137, got bike lanes and sidewalks on most of it, and so forth, town line to town line. I had 124 in the works. Well, you got Long Pond Drive in between them, and I drive that way, so I see the two women with strollers side by side every morning walking out in the road, and think, we gotta do something about this. So, we did. I went to the board and said, hey, how about this? Yep. Okay, so go spend, back then it was maybe $30,000, $40,000, have it surveyed, start some plans, and then the political fractions started showing up, and the next thing I know, I was told to table it. Yep. So it made perfect
I don't wanna get
sense.
discouraged.
Well, it made sense. I've got connectivity and sidewalks and bike lanes over this major road, this one in the road. Let's give them a way to connect. It was intuitive. Because this project wasn't done yet, the board actually said, why don't we just sit on this, because of the sidewalk to nowhere I was building, why don't we sit on the Long Pond Drive project until you get your 124 project done, then come back. Well, guess what? The 124 project went, and so Long Pond Drive never got done. Lower Bank Street, can't drive down there this time of year without having to pull out around people.
Yep.
Right? Had a sidewalk design down there. Go to a meeting, yep. Next thing you know, the abutters catch wind of it, show up with the board, and never happened.
The puzzlement or the struggle that I have in my head about all of this is it's because it certainly seems as though it takes a lot of your time to keep, on top of all of this stuff. And there's a certain weight that ADA brings to the table, and who advocates or who helps you advocate for those things, and that there has to be some sort of going up, as you've described, that somewhere along the chain somebody says, no, let's not deal with this. And how is there some way that we can assist with that somehow or another? Or are there...
She's just stood in front of the angry mob, Larry, like you and I have.
Sure. Believe me,
Well, I got,
in the work that I do, I've been in front of the angry mob.
well, the point's well taken. My point I'm trying to get across is just don't get completely discouraged out of it.
Well, but who is advocating above a local town? Who is the next level? I'm asking that.
If it's a
From-
local
from
road, you're looking
understanding.
at the owners.
Right.
If it's a local road,
But you have legislative people that are around, I assume.
That doesn't come into play on a local road. If it's a local road, it really is what your legislators can do. There's nothing for them to do. If the board wants something built, we'll go and build it. If they don't, or the political pressure becomes too much and they decide not to, then we don't. They have custody, ultimate jurisdiction over all the town's roads. So when I say I try to build, it's not I mean as the town's agent has promulgated these various projects.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
Yeah.
the 124 one was the biggest beating. The town spent $250,000 engineering. Probably 3 years it was in the works before it got slammed down. and an inordinate amount of my time, and to lose a project over the size of a shoulder was very discouraging after
Sure,
spending
sure.
$250,000 of the town's money. I would have rather put that into infrastructure than designing something that's going nowhere.
Yeah, it's frustrating for him and for the town,
Right.
when just a few people, I should say that, a portion of the town, even though they floated the idea for a long time, plenty of public hearings, all that kind of stuff, and then it gets shot down, so.
Yeah, it's not always like that. Sometimes you have some kumbaya projects, but I've been doing this long enough to know that
Oh, I don't,
really can't make a decision.
I'm not
without
criticizing
stepping on
anything.
somebody's toes. No, I didn't take it that way.
No, I mean, I think you worked very hard on this. And I keep going through my mind, there must be somewhere, leverage somewhere in the systems, not just for you, but also through the town or through the legislatures above us or something.
Well,
I
we
mean, or
do
maybe
get
that's just my LA
Well-
thing, but,
You know, we get a lot of help from the Cape Cod Commission. Granted,
Uh-huh.
we pay them, we get a bill and we pay them, so they kind of work for us. But we get, what Barnstable County is very active county government and the Cape Cod Commission. A lot of this stuff wouldn't even happen without their assistance. So
there is some
they
leverage.
help advocate for us. What you're
Okay.
saying is, they absolutely.
that's what I was asking, yeah.
That they help go up the food chain.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
do a lot of the easy work. A lot of the work that saves us from hiring consultants, like gathering traffic data. Right? They go out and you see the
Okay.
tubes across the road. So they do all of that. My ride this morning, I actually called the deputy director, Steve Tupper, at the commission, because I know I've got him looking at these two crossings for crossing lights, 124 and Oak Street, for feasibility of putting crossing lights there. He's a traffic engineer by trade. And the consultant was asking, I said, I didn't want to duplicate efforts here. So I asked Steve how far along he was, and then I put them together so that nothing gets duplicated.
Let me comment on that, because I have invited Steve Tupper to come to your next meeting.
Oh,
to give
and who
Steve
is he
Tupper-
again, please? I didn't,
He's the deputy director at the Cape Cod Commission.
Okay.
But above that, he has run the transportation improvement program. He has run, and he just got promoted 3 or 4 months ago. And he is a traffic engineer
For
by
the,
trade.
for
I
the
invited
minutes,
him
could you
because-
give me this person's name again, please?
Steve Tupper,
Okay.
T-U-P.
Okay, thank you.
I invited him, I think I mentioned someone last time, but it's from Cape Cod Commission, because he can bring to us, Link's explained a lot of things. I think
yeah, very
What
different.
Steve can do is maybe give us some direction on what grants may be available. These
Absolutely.
types- These types of activities that
Sure.
that Link's referred to as
We're
a
getting-
resource.
Carolyn, just so, kind of off the beaten track here, a skosh, but we just, Steve, out of the blue, says, hey, do you need any more bike racks? So 2 years ago, I got a grant through the commission, and we got 10 bike racks, I believe, and we put them out at beaches and some town buildings. And I'm thinking, yeah, and so I floated it with a few other staff members, and Carolyn Carey put in for some bike racks and 2 fix-it stations. So all we have to do is fill out some paperwork, make the purchase, install it, and then we get reimbursed through programs that they do. So they do more than advocate for us.
So there are some folks that are
Yeah, and
assistive
he's already
to.
invited this gentleman that made all this happen for us.
And how does it
Let me
stand
just
with,
finish that thought. If it's okay, I would like, if you would be agreeable to invite him to the next meeting, which I have this meeting July 12th.
Yes.
I promise if you guys agreed, I'd get back to you and confirm that.
Yeah.
This is, I think, with Lynn, it would be a great follow-up on the grant, some ideas going
Yeah.
forward.
sure, yeah.
He could talk bigger picture than I, and he knows all of the So when I get into some of these political discussions about
Sure.
a tip project going, actually, he's been on 2 out of the 3 sidewalks I referenced.
He was an advocate for what we did here.
The Saquatucket
Right,
sidewalk,
And
Huge advocate. They actually took notes. We had a public hearing, and the commission ran the public hearing for us. And that was a huge kumbaya moment with everyone coming up, only because the one person couldn't get her mic to work.
Can
Let
you
me-
take,
Oh, go right ahead.
can you just take us through the steps that, this is hypothetical. Our committee gets a grant,
Yep.
doesn't matter how much. We decide we want curb cuts somewhere, and we want to improve something. This is all
They
hypothetical.
will never.
What's the process after that?
Okay, you're a little caught before the horse.
Okay,
Nobody's gonna award you a grant on, I'd like to just have this pot of money, and then I'm thinking about doing this X, Y, and Z.
okay, this is what.
Any grants are gonna be specific for a specific project. And my experience with most of this is that you need to have preliminary engineering done to even fill the grant application out. It's not design quality or build quality engineering, but it's more than the layperson can usually do just by themselves. Most of the grant applications, the commission would be more than happy to assist. They have filled many of them out for us. And actually, Mass DOT went to a map it thing, so their Chapter 90 requests, you've seen it looked all different the last couple of times, Larry. So Mass DOT's went to an online portal rather than paperwork portal, and they're having some growing pains. But Steve Tupper could outline that process to you
Great.
much better
Thank
than
you.
me. Much better than me. And he knows what's available.
Yeah, they have people that are aware of the grants
Yeah.
and just look, there are huge lists of grants that are available and to whom they're available and the
I
parameters
mean,
of the
when I
grants.
went through all this and I saw this one grant that was written, and it just is,
Submitted three
uh,
times without traction. Submitted, so that's why Matt got frustrated and
Positive
said,
feedback each time before it got,
was that MassWorks that he was?
yeah.
Yeah, we lost the MassWorks grant we didn't get for the sidewalk project, which was complete BS. They said, well, the reason we had a debrief, Larry, with that one, and they said the reason we used the, I don't know what that, like that J1 housing development, that old hotel down there,
Yeah.
we use that as part of the emphasis of why we got the new health center going in, and we got that. The reason they came back, the state said we didn't qualify, or, that we weren't approved, was because those projects weren't completed, but those were already in the works prior to our application. Sounds like they were just looking for an excuse to not fund us.
Yeah.
It worked. No, absolutely.
Timing is a big thing with the state and the feds.
So, speaking of grants, Heinz Proctor, our natural resource officer, and I had applied for culvert grants 2 or 3 times to do a culvert on 124, the Herring Run. It goes in, it feeds Long Pond, feeds that whole system. Got nowhere. I was having lunch at one of the public works meetings, sitting next to a consultant, and we just started talking, and that's his bailiwick, that's what he does. So the next thing I know, I have all the players, so I have conservation agent, the natural resource agent, myself, my road manager, and a team of these people in this company. And what became evident to me was Heinz and I don't speak this grant language. There is buzzwords that the people reviewing this need to see. They need to make sense. I don't know what those are. This company absolutely knew what these were. So the board has signed, we haven't signed it, I think it was an intent. We haven't got approved yet, but if approved, then you're gonna have to sign a contract with them, which was just for the evaluation. I think it was $100,000 just to get the grant, just to get the evaluation done. I know, the numbers are mind-boggling if you're not in the business.
If you read through what Matt put together, a lot of his, all the time he spent was trying to do what Link is referred to, is to learn the jargon. He'd said something and they rejected because he didn't have some little.
Grant writing is very specific. I just got a
Right.
grant for the church,
It is.
and it's only $3,000.
You just
I've
can't
been
walk in
back-
the door and do a grant. You need to-
Oh, no, it's a grant. Back and forth with the state for umpteen. It's just, if you don't know the words, and there was a company in Harwich that actually was very successful, that's all they did was grants.
Yeah. What's your email is void. There's only views allowed in the past.
So if you have something that is important to you and your committee that you'd like to pursue, and you think the only way to get it done is a grant, I would say you start with Steve Tupper, or the commission. What can you do for us? What recommendations do you have? And then probably engage a consultant that is in that business. Because we have not been successful, like I can count probably 6 separate grant applications that I've been turned down on. And it really is about speaking that language. It really, really is.
Or someone that, their job is to shepherd it along.
Right, exactly.
I'm gonna have to go a little bit, but let me get back to advocacy, because Link has talked a couple of times about 124 and the sidewalk and all that issue. I think in the end, from a political side, I hate to say that, but the political side, there's advocates against the project. And because we're Harwich, when you get a group against it, it's spread through the town. So it's not 1 or 2 people, and there's no advocate for the project.
We had 250 people show up for that hearing.
Yeah. And very vocal, and that's something we can do, because their complaint was, the technical thing that Lincoln, you talked about was, that was correct, but actually the people objecting to it were objecting to it in a very broad scale that's hard to refute. It was going to destroy the country road, 124. It was going to make it look like downtown Manhattan, where they put that road in. And so it drifted, excuse my term on that, I'll use it, drifted from a sidewalk issue, which technically we should have solved that. Link had that solved. But it went over to this whole destroying Harwich, the character of Harwich, and then it lost control. And we didn't have, so that's one thing the committee should be thinking, who can you bring in? How much can we do to advertise and bring up support for these projects as well?
And DOT would have built that project. All the noise, Pam was sitting
Yeah.
sitting right next to me and said, Link, if your board stays together, I'll build this. I don't care about the noise.
Right.
Well, as soon as the board fractioned, DOT said, yeah. And that was like probably the second most horrible experience I've ever had in my career. I spent 1.5 years really wanting to get this thing done, because I didn't see why the taxpayers of Howard should pay for that what is a regional road. And it was sad. Larry was out there, he went on, what did we have, like 3 different sidewalks?
We went up and
People
down.
yelling at me. Oh, it was,
Marking out specific places and trees, right?
Yep.
We got into trees.
My guess is that somewhere in this building or the leadership here has some, connection with lawyers, and they would know what is being driven by, ADA being driven by the American Bar Association. And there sounds like there's potential for leverage there somewhere along the way. That you just can't ignore it. It's a federal law.
In the end, it's whoever's law is.
the law,
Well-
actually, if you want from a legal standpoint.
I'm sorry?
Why I can't throw a crosswalk in willy-nilly and I have to meet a code is because of legality. However, something that is existing substandard, I'm not obligated to go fix. Okay? If that makes any sense to you. So, anything that I construct has to meet current standards.
Sure, yeah, no.
Anything
Reasonable.
that is, say, grandfathered or existing does not. Until you go touch something.
I understand.
So you work on a building, until I rip up a road, do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're obligated to fix that infrastructure to current standards.
Unless, sadly to say, somebody gets killed because there was no sidewalk. And then the
Well-
town's gonna respond.
Or somebody that
Lose.
has significant limitations and,
Or for bad accidents, similar to what you did way out on 39? You improved the
Oh.
sight lines and that kind of stuff?
But even that was a huge undertaking.
That was, yeah.
So we had a fatality at Pleasant Bay in 39, he was just referring to. And so the commission, Steve Tupper, he actually was the engineer that led the evaluation, did a safety audit of the intersection, and they gave me a list. They did a presentation to the Board of Selectmen, and the selectmen said, yeah, go do what's within your preview, short of building a roundabout out there. So I was able to take down a bunch of trees, improve sight lines, put up flashing stop signs, stop ahead, trying to get some poles moved from 5 years ago, they're still sitting there. And did whatever I could in that list. And you know what? They've really cut down on the intersections. Why that percolated to the top? Because they put out a most dangerous intersections on Cape Cod.
Yep.
And that was why at the top. Not outright dangerous, it was on some weighted property damage evaluation. It was on some weighted value, it was the most dangerous. Not a most fatalities, most accidents, it wasn't any of that. But that caught everyone's attention, so then that went right to the top.
Hey, Don has a question.
Sort of on the same lines, who's in charge of bike path crossings?
That would be us.
Is there a plan ongoing on putting one on Depot Road?
Yep, already purchased, already done, in the works.
Not up,
Not installed.
before the end of the summer?
Probably not.
Okay.
But it is in the works, as well as one in Headwaters. That's a pretty dangerous
Yeah.
corner right there as well.
Off topic from sidewalks and traffic, the beaches. Are some of our beaches handicap accessible with those nets or not? And what,
You know, we put them out, we do what rec asks.
so it's the recreation.
Oh, what?
The recreation department has jurisdiction over all the beaches.
Oh, okay.
Didn't know that.
So
I,
we work, we work cooperatively, and so we go and take care of the trash pickup and and we contracted out the restrooms with, for the season. And that's under our jurisdiction. And rec, we work with rec, so when they said they want a parking lot paved, I think we did Pleasant Bay was the last one. Pleasant Street, not Pleasant Bay, Pleasant Street. Parking lot. We're the ones that make that happen. They put the request in, they had an article to fund it, and then we do
So some of the bigger beaches like Red River or Bank Street, are they ADA compliant at all?
I can't speak articulately.
Go to recreation.
Well, yes, ask rec. I know we do put out mats. I know like Bank Street, only because I was down at
Yeah.
that because of some political kids being down there, whatever, the other night. I know Bank Street has one. I know sporadically there are those walkways put out. And yes, we're the ones that construct them, we're the ones that put them up, and we're the ones that take them out.
But it comes
But
from recreation.
if you were requesting a new one, or an inventory of them, I would go to Eric Beebe.
I think the concern that we've heard, the committee has talked about, is that it looks to me, I mean, believe me, construction is not my thing. That there is such a tilt to them that they're actually dangerous for able people walking down there. And
That's as long as you can push the wheelchair through the
So
sand.
that's what I'm thinking.
I can't hear you.
That's as long as you can push the wheelchair through the sand.
Through the sand, on top of that
On top
board
of the
thing.
walkway,
Yeah, well,
Unless it's.
So-
I think if they got lifeguards on there, you could sweep those off.
You would think.
they need to be reseeded, balanced out and that stuff. And the one, I walk Red River a lot, and there was like 4 inches of sand on top of them. And you just, that to me seems to be an easy ADA compliance issue, but
Now we've learned it's the recreation department.
Well,
Can ask
they'll
them.
put in a work order with us to go do that, but I
Oh.
would go through rec.
who would that person?
Recreation department would, if
A
you call up.
name.
Eric Beebe.
Eric Beebe,
Yeah,
okay.
he's the rec director.
Very nice guy. Very compliant, listens to you.
Do you
Oh,
know,
that's nice.
do you know
Eric's good.
Beebe?
Yeah, he's
Would
good.
you mind giving him a call at just Bank Street Beach and
Red River.
Red River.
Beach? We're just coming about one path, so someone in a wheelchair could get on the beach.
Can you put it in writing on a little notepad and I'll deliver it to him?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Sure.
when they get to it.
Oh,
Or they'll
that's all
send it
you're
to
really
them.
gonna do is have them look at it.
Yeah.
He'll put in a work order with
Yep.
us. I cannot guarantee you, because we're up against
When?
the end of the fiscal year, people on vacations, we're still down on staff, haven't been able to get any seasonal help. I hate making excuses, but folks, this has been, I was
Sure.
down 5 people, 5 full-time people out of 40. It's been very challenging. Haven't been able to get seasonal help last like 3 years. I can only go to like 17 or 18 an hour.
Rent out some rooms. You got enough room.
Thanks, thank you.
That'll help. They got a place to put their head down at night.
You know what? Why would they want to come with us and mow grass and work when they can go to Stop and Shop
Yeah,
for
yeah.
$18 an hour and be in air conditioning?
Yep.
And get benefits over there,
For 18 an hour, they give seasonal people benefits?
some benefits.
We just can't compete. It just,
Yeah, they get their meals free.
do they?
Yeah, they send them up Queen Anne Road. Just like what Quonset Inn does and Witchmere Harbor.
Well,
They send all the help to those up to Queen Anne Road. Get all the food you want.
I've been unable to get any seasonal help, so now I've got full-time help. The highway department, I know I said 40, but that's 7 different departments. What I've got in highway, what you guys are really talking about, is 7 people. One's a manager, so that's 6. And then you start talking, 6 people, you get something done. Lose 1 guy to doing the beaches, to surf raking all week, so he's gone. Got 2 people on street sweepers, got 1 on a catch basin cleaner.
On how many miles?
And now we
road?
got vacations that everyone has to take, and you can see that it's challenging. Because then we got we got 2 other people on mowers, mowing the sides of the road. That's the crew. It's tough. There's a lot of juggling act, but we've got good people and,
Thank God.
yeah, really.
Link,
Well-
I really want to thank you.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say the same
Does
thing.
anyone else have any questions before you leave? Really.
I have more information than I think I ever
took
wanted.
an hour every day, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know the committee does.
And I have to say that I think that the dump is the cleanest one I've ever seen in my life, most organized
You know, you and I are
transfer
gonna,
station
well, I
ever.
started my career there, but I'm gonna say aesthetically wise, I'm not as
You're not happy?
as I have been.
Oh, my God, I've never,
Well, you're looking at the guy that would go by, drive by in a loader when I worked there, and, you know, I see a piece of paper that a resident would see, I'd get out and pick it up, right? Just because
Yeah.
I know that if it's pleasant, this is the feedback I get. So
Yeah.
I would always try to keep it as
I mean,
thick
I
and
don't-
span as possible.
I don't
think-
see seagulls all over the place, I don't see papers. It's the most organized one I've ever seen, so
Well,
you're,
thank you.
congratulations to that.
We got good people. My heart and soul's there. I spent 13 years at the disposal area, driving trash, running equipment, and
You know this town, don't you?
31 and a half years I've served.
Wow.
There's advantages from going from the bottom up, because you got to see you got good feedback from the selectmen last night, though. It was very good.
It was a kind of a kumbaya, although, let's not raise rate. I can't think of anything else in 7 years that hasn't gone up, besides your dump stickers.
Thank you for that.
Thank the selectmen, but the board did that. They're like, yep, why'd you watch that?
Yeah.
We're pretty much we like your math, appreciate all the work, but no, we're not gonna go up on them, go up on the commercial people. And no harm, no foul, but 7 years not having anything go up, that's,
So I don't have to pay more this year?
no, sir. 160.
I guess I know I should help thank that.
I'm certain you spend more at Dunkin' Donuts.
Who does?
You do, that was generic.
Yeah, I know. I won't go there anymore.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Oh,
Let me
second,
also
second.
just say, with the approval of the committee, that we have Steve Tupper speak at our next meeting.
Mhm.
Do you have a date on that?
Yes,
one?
yes, I certainly do.
Do you,
It's-
well, I know Larry was gonna handle it, but I have to call Steve back on another matter. And
The next meeting is July 12th.
July 12th, thank you.
At 1?
Yes,
Yep.
and this one. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.